Hello students, this is Mr. Yao. Today we are going to talk about the first form of transformation, which is translation. Let's first define about transformation. It is a change of a geometric figure's position, shape, or size. Could be one of these or it could be all of them. Just depends on the transformation we are talking about. The original figure is called the pre-image, and in this case is the normal letter. You can see right here, the A, B, C, D. That's the original figure, that's the pre-image. And the resulting figure is called the image. We actually use A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime to show that. So in this case, you can see the A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. That would be an image. A rigid transformation keeps the same shape and size. So as you can see, these two figures, they look exactly the same. It kind of just changed position. So that's going to be called a rigid transformation. And in this case, the two figures, the image and the pre-image, they are congruent. Now let's talk about translation. Translation means we move the shape from one position to another. Sometimes we also call it a shift or slide. And it can be done vertically, horizontally, or a combination of vertical and horizontal movements. And since we're just moving things around, it's just changing the position, it is going to be a rigid transformation because the shape and the size didn't change. They stay the same. In other words, every vertex has to move the same amount in the same direction so that the shape and the size wouldn't change. And also the sides, all the sides in the shape, the perimeter, which means adding all the sides together, and the area, which is the amount of space that the shape covers, are also preserved. We will use two different ways to describe the translations: word description and coordinate rules. First, translation description. We're going to use a number of units and the horizontal and or vertical directions. For example, translate 3 units, and you see right, well, of course, that's the horizontal change, 3 units right and 1 unit down. So that's how we describe translation. Now let's have a look at some examples. Example 1, translation 2 units left and 1 unit up. That means for every single point, we're going to move them 2 units left and 1 unit up. So for example, T, 2 units left, 1 unit up. That's going to give you a point right here, which is T prime. Make sure you actually label the new shape, which is the image. For Y, same thing, 2 units left, 1 unit up is going to end up being here, Y prime. For R, 2 units left, 1 unit up is going to be right here. Now we just need to connect them. T prime connect with Y prime connect with R prime. Let me actually change to a different color. T prime to Y prime to R prime, and R prime going back to T prime. That is our new shape. And as you can see in comparison, it's basically the same as the previous shape. And even more so, the lines are actually parallel. So T prime Y prime is actually parallel with TY. Next, example 2. Translation, 3 units right and 2 units down. So every single shape, 3 units right, 2 units down. Right here, that's going to be B prime. 3 units right, 2 units down. Right here, A prime. 3 units right, 2 units down. Right here, D prime. And 3 units right, 2 units down is actually going to be slightly out of the graph, is right here, C prime. Lastly, make sure you connect them in the same order. A prime connect with B prime connect with C prime connect with D prime, and lastly, D prime going back to A prime. That should be fairly simple, so that's example 2. Now we are going to talk about the translation coordinate rule. We typically start a rule by writing x, y, then arrow. So x, y just represents any coordinate in the shape. Any coordinates in the shape. And the arrow is just kind of telling us what is going to be changed into. Because of course, when you change the position, all the coordinate changed. And the change is according to, let's say, translate to the right 2 or down 3, whatever. You are going to change the x value and the y value. So we are going to have this plus h and a plus k, where they're actually integers. So remember, for h, since it's on the x, that means we're moving left and right. This is the horizontal change. And right is positive, left is negative. For k, that of course means the vertical because the k is being added to the y value. And up is positive, down is negative. Now let's see how we use rule to perform the translation. So first, x minus 2, that just means it's on the x, so that's going to be to the left by 2. Because negative, again, it's to the left for horizontal. And the y didn't change, so that means we don't need to do anything vertically. So every single point just move to the left by 2. P moved to the left by 2 becomes P prime right here. D moved to the left by 2, D prime right here. G moved to the left by 2, G prime right here. And lastly, we just need to connect them. P prime to D prime to G prime, and G prime back to P prime. And there's our shape. Example 4. This time, x is being added with a 3. So that's on the horizontal. Add is going to be to the right by 3. And the y is subtracting 3. That means it's going down by 3. And now, let's perform the translation. Start with this point, I, to the right by 3, and then down by 3. I prime is going to be right here. Caret for k, to the right by 3, down by 3. It's going to be right here, k prime. For n, to the right by 3, down by 3, right here, n prime. And for d, to the right by 3, down by 3, it is right here. So as you can see, there may be times when you actually go through the translation process, it's going to kind of go through some of the original points. So please make sure right after you find a new point, a new position for a point, you actually label it and draw a big dot to indicate that's actually the new point. Now let's connect k prime with I prime going to n prime going to d prime, and lastly d prime going back to k prime. And that is my new shape. That's my image. That's example 4. Next, for example 5 and 6, we are going to write description and coordinate rules for the translation. So this is important that you need to be able to tell the difference between the pre-image and the image. Remember, the pre-image doesn't have the prime, so these would actually be the pre-image. And of course, the prime would be your image. So we're trying to see what kind of change is it from the pre-image to the image. And well, from C to C prime, that's to the right by 2, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we can always check with another point. Let's say D to the right by 2, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. So the description would be translate, right, well, it's translate 2 to the right, and 5 down. Or you can say translate to the right by 2 and down by 5. Just kind of, that's the basic idea. You do need to make sure you use the word translate. You also need to have the numbers and then the direction. Make sure you have all of these. Now to write the rule always start with x comma y arrow. And for the x, it is to the right by 2. So that means we're adding a 2 on top of the x. And for the y, it is going down. Remember, down is negative, so it's got to be y minus 5. That's the rule for example 5. Example 6. This time, as you may notice, the new shape is kind of directly above the original shape. For you to be able to tell them apart again, if you don't see a prime, that will be the pre-image. If you see the little prime sign, that will be the new image. So from D to D prime is going up 1, 2, 3, 4. You can check with, say, a B. B is 1, 2, 3, 4, also going up by 4. So in this case, translate 4 up. There's no horizontal change. There's no left or right. It is just going up. So now it's time to write the rule x comma y with an arrow. The x didn't even change because there's no horizontal change, so x stay there. For the y, it is going up by 4, so we're going to do y plus 4. That is the rule for example 6. Now that's everything for translation. Thank you.